Welcome to the October 2025 San Antonio housing market update. Who has the most to be spooked by right now? Is it home buyers? Is it sellers in the market? What are they spooked by? Is it the interest rates? They've been coming down lately. Or is it the government shutdown? How is that going to affect the housing market, especially if it drags on for a long time? We're going to explore the answers to those questions and how they apply to this month's housing market numbers here in San Antonio. I'm Krishna Perkins. I'm a real estate broker here in San Antonio, and I've been bringing buyers and sellers together since 2007. I know, yikes. If you're contemplating a move and you just want to hash things out, you can reach me at 210-260-6617 for a no hassle, no obligation consultation, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8. So let's look at interest rates. They've been coming down for a while now. In fact, they've been coming down, for the better part of the year. And in fact, we just received a federal funds rate cut of a quarter point, which oddly enough didn't do really much of anything with the housing market or the mortgage rates because they were already baked into the mortgage rates by all the lenders. We got that federal funds rate cut, and before the government ran out of money in their checking account, which we'll get into more later, let's talk about the San Antonio housing market numbers and who might be more spooked, buyers or sellers. Okay, first and foremost, we're looking at the entire market here in San Antonio and what kind of market we're in for the month of September. We're shooting October, but the data that we're looking at is for September. We're currently in a balanced market. And as you can see here, we increased our inventory in the month of September at the rate of about 1%. So we have 5.5 months of inventory. If you're a buyer, you're probably excited about this because it means you have more inventory to choose from. If you are a seller, though, you're a little spooked by this, right? Okay, it's October and you have more competition here in terms of having your home priced correctly, having the condition of your home stacked up against the condition of other homes that you're competing with. Let me pause here to tell a quick story, a situation that I ran across in the last couple of weeks. I have been talking to for sale by owners in the area, and one in particular in Live Oak, true story. I spoke to the gentleman. He pointed out some comparable homes to his property. I looked up the address he was talking about. He said it was sold. At first, I didn't think it was. I looked in the MLS and found that it wasn't sold yet. I called the listing agent and he said, yes, it had closed. It closed a few days prior. He just hadn't updated the progress. What is really spooky for this for sale by owner that I found out, and I later called him back and told him, is that this comparable ended up selling for significantly less than the list price. And in that conversation I had with a listing agent, he told me that this property was a quick sale. It wasn't because the property had problems. It wasn't because the property was just a mess. I concurred. I looked at the property. It could have passed FHA. It could have passed VA, conventional. It didn't have any major defects. Maybe it needed a little bit of updating here and there, but nothing extraordinary. It ended up going from $275 to $195, a significant drop in price. The sellers were just in a position that they had to move. I don't know what the reason was for their having to sell quickly. I don't know if it was a legal reason or just a financial reason on the other end, but they ended up having to take a really low offer to a cash investor. And the unfortunate thing here in this story I'm telling you is that in this market where we're continuing to see a balanced market closer to a buyer's market. I don't know how far that's going to go, but you're going to find situations like this. If you're a seller, you want to keep an eye on that and have your agent, look out for you and make these phone calls, because you want to make sure that the appraiser is advised in those situations. Being a quick sale is basically a seller in distress. It's a distress sale. If the appraiser does not call and find out that there is distress on that seller, they may count it as just a regular comparable to your home and really hurt you. So make sure, if you're a seller, keep an eye on your competition. Be sure to ask your agent, hey, is there any sales that I need to know about lately? Especially if you're under contract and moving towards the closing table, you do not want a surprise sale on the comparables that hurts you in this way. Okay. Can't guarantee that you'll change the appraiser's mind 100%, but at least give yourself a chance up front, because having to go back and try to fight the appraiser and change it later is next to impossible. Now back into the report here. 5.5 months of inventory, balanced market. If you're not sure what that means, check out this video on seller's market versus buyer's market. Sold price to list price ratio, we're sitting here. We've actually improved 96.9%. That's an increase in the ratio by 1%. That's not terrible for buyers, but it's a little spooky. It's better for sellers for that to happen. The days on market is actually increased to 8.16 month over month. Okay, 8%. That's 53 days on the market. So sellers don't want to see that. It's taken almost 10% longer to get the house sold. Okay. The typical sold price there, $295,000. Again, that's good for sellers there, or almost a 2% month over month increase in the median sold price. Next up, new listings in San Antonio. These homes just came on the market in September. The typical new listing home that's being sold in San Antonio is sitting at $299,500. So they're listing their properties a little bit more expensive, and you can't help but think that correlates with the decline in interest rates that we've seen in the housing market. We do have a 3.3% month over month increase there. This is something to keep an eye on. If you're a home buyer and you're kind of sitting on the fence waiting for those interest rates to drop, don't forget about other buyers that are sitting on the fence as well, that are just waiting for that rate to come down, and maybe they haven't been paying attention to the headlines and it did come down. All of a sudden they jump into the market and snap up that house you've been looking at. That's what we're looking at here. Potentially more buyers jumping off the market, off the fence. And we saw that in new homes. New homes are up 20% in activity since the interest rates have dropped. So keep that in mind. The number of new listings that came in the market, this is actually down. New listings down 2,000 to 2,340 properties. This is kind of a seasonal thing. If you look at this here, this tracks the number of new listings year over year since 2020. You can see we peak in that May, June time frame. Just about every year. After June, it starts going down, especially up September, October. Here we have in 2024, it peaked there in May and really started coming down August, September, October. Here we are in 2025. New listing activity peaked in May, and it's been falling ever since. Next up is active listings in San Antonio. These are the homes that have not sold. They've been waiting for an offer. These homeowners have possibly made price decreases in what they're asking for the house. And the typical home in active listing status is asking $305,000. We'll round that up. That is actual increase, 1.3% month over month increase. And good news for some of the sellers in that category, the total number of properties has declined. We saw that in the new listing activity we just went over. 1.3% month over month decline in active listings. Not a huge amount, but you can see where overall trend is still increasing in active listings. We do always kind of plateau here towards the end of the year in active listings. Let's look a little bit closer. As you can see there, we've kind of been on that plateau since May, June timeframe, and we have a slight decrease here in the month of September to October, as you can see there. Not a huge dip. We'll see how that shapes up through winter and in the spring. Typical days on market, I think active listings or sellers would be spooked over the number of days on the market. We're at 74 days on the market and climbing 2.8% month over month. So all those folks that are holding on for their price definitely don't want to continue to see these number of days increasing on a monthly basis. You want to see that coming down. So if you're a buyer, you're excited about that because you've got more time to plan out to make offers on those homes. If you're a seller, you're not so excited about that. That's spooky. That's scary. It happened to that home I told you about in Live Oak. In fact, I think they were at 60 days on the market. If the house was empty, I could tell that it was a vacant house, 60 days vacant on the market or however long it was. That can worry you and you end up doing something you don't want to have to do. And finally here, we're going to cover new pending listings. These are the homeowners that have accepted a contract just now in the month of September. These homes are listed with a median price of $290,000. $290,000. That's actually down from the previous month, almost 1%. That's good news for the buyers that secured those homes. They got them a little bit cheaper and quite possibly with a better interest rate too. The number of properties, which is typical for this time of year, is on the decline. Now we are in a year-over-year decline in new pending sales activity, but with the continued effort of lower interest rates, we may see this reverse itself in the near future. For the sellers that have their home priced competitively, the days on the market, slightly bad news there. To get to that new pending status, it's still increasing. 55 days on the market, that almost 6% month over month. So they're slowing down in the activity, getting into that pending status. This could be a result of cancellations we saw back in July. We had a huge spike in cancellations here in San Antonio. You can go back on the channel, and if I have time, I'll put a video here about that. But we had a lot of cancellations in the San Antonio market. The days on the market, 55 days, almost 6% month over month. You can't ignore that. Not too good of news for sellers. In addition to the all-important pending home sales, we have sold listings, homes that sold in San Antonio in the month of September. We're looking at a typical sale price of around $295,000. That's actually up 1.7% month over month, which is good news for the sellers and could be better news if interest rates continue to fall. We could see better sales prices in the future for sellers. And the number of properties that actually sold actually down 1,000 to 1,467 properties. That's a 13% drop month over month. We want to keep an eye on these numbers. We want to see, if you're a buyer, you're pretty excited about seeing this, and if you're a seller, you're getting pretty freaked out right now. Depending on where you're listed at and what your pricing strategy is, you don't want to see that decline right there. But nevertheless, we do have interest rate cuts on the horizon, and just price according to your neighborhood and the markets you're adjacent to. Who is the least spooked and the most spooked in the market right now because of the government shutdown? My vote is for investors. Investors right now have the most to gain in a government shutdown, namely because their top competitors in the housing market are retail buyers, and retail buyers have a tough moment right in front of them. And it's going to just get tougher the longer the government shutdown lasts. Let's think locally, FHA buyers, VA buyers, USDA buyers, and really any buyer that is going to require an IRS transcript. So on FHA, government-backed type loan, if you have lower credit, it may require additional documentation from the IRS or through FHA. Okay, may require manual underwriting. That takes more time and personnel. And with the government shutdown, that type of loan is going to take longer. VA buyers. We're in Military City, USA here in San Antonio. And if you have a lower credit score or you have extenuating circumstances, you need some certificate for your VA loan, again, it may take longer to get, adding stress to the deal and competitiveness required to get the loan to close. USDA loans, historically USDA, they may cease operations if the shutdown lasts longer. Be prepared for that if you're buying a rural type property and trying to take advantage of USDA financing. And then finally, the IRS transcripts. This can affect just about anybody that has a loan connected to the purchase of their home. Again, it's not going to shut down completely, but you could see delays, again, adding more stress to the deal. If you've already been asking a seller for a lot lately and they're already at their wits end with you, your lender hasn't gotten the IRS transcripts, this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So the best medicine is to be proactive, get with your lenders sooner rather than later, especially if you are planning on buying a home in the near future. In the next couple of months, make that phone call, make that connection now before, or just in case rather, the government shutdown lasts for a long time and you can check some things off your list and reduce that. If you have questions, you can reach me at 210-260-6617. We can set up a hassle-free, no pressure consultation. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.